Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. Today we come to the conclusion of the most wonderful and the most difficult chapter of the entire Bhagavad Gita, the 13th chapter. The 13th chapter, Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga, concludes in a very beautiful way. Dr. Sachin, if you can explain this verse for us.
Hari Om all. Welcome to the most important and the concluding verse of 13th chapter. I will just go through some of the highlights from the chapter which helps us understand this verse. As we all know, the chapter starts with the 6 questions from Arjuna to Krishna. What is Kshetra and Kshetrajna? What is Purusha and Prakriti? What is Nyayam and Jnanam? From verse 2 to 24, Krishna answers all of them systematically and elaborates on anatma, which actually answers the 5 questions which were being asked by Arjuna. Now Swamiji explains anything that is savikara, saguna and achaitanyam is material, and that is nothing but the anatma principle. Swamiji has previously explained and simplified this by saying anything that is growing, graying and going from this world is nothing but the anatma. That is the Kshetra and Prakriti principle which has been explained in these verses. Further, this chapter also dealt with the sadhana chatushtaya sampannam needed and the upasanas that one has to undergo to attain the Brahman. For the sadhaka to shift this understanding from the lower I to the higher I by doing karma, upasana, shravanam, mananam and nididhyasanam in his daily life and proclaim that aham nityam satya rupam chaitanya swarupam atma asmi. I am that. And especially the chapter borrows the understanding from other Upanishads like Kaivalya and Kaina Upanishads about the attributelessness and all-pervading principle of Atma that is correlated to the Akasha and Prakasha principle in the last 2 verses which we dealt, namely 33 and 34. Coming to this 35th verse, that actually explains about the Jnana Phalam. So we can also call this as Phalashruti verse that goes like this. Kshetra Kshetrajnayoryevam Antaram Jnanamam Chakshusha Bhuta Prakriti Moksham Cha Ya Vidurte Param. After having got the information of the seemingly different Kshetra and Kshetrajna or Purusha and Prakriti, the wise man gets transformed and sets themselves free or liberated and also called as Jivan Mukta. Just as the wave becomes the immortal and submits itself to the ocean after the clear understanding that both are nothing but the water principle. This wave no more has the fear of death or its end. It rises and submerges into the ocean happily thereafter. In the verse, Krishna says that the Jnana Chakshu Rupa Phalam, the wise man can clearly identify the difference between the Atma and Anatma. And what are they? They are namely Chaitanya Achaitanyam, Nirgunam Sagunam, Nirvikaram Savikaram. And the last most important is Satyam and Mityam differences. Just as the movie projected on the screen doesn't affect the screen with its scenes, so does the conscious principle, the Atman in me, doesn't get affected in any way because of the projected world in me, which is nothing but the Mithya Prapancha or Mithya Jagat. That samsara cannot affect anymore the wise man further, the Satya Prapancha, the Chaitanya principle in the wise man or in me. Therefore, Bhuta Prakriti Moksham Cha. Moksha here refers to the Mithyatvam. So Mithyatvam of what? Purusha or Prakriti, of the Bhuta Prakriti. Not only the Prakriti, but the inert beings or things around me. So Bhuta Prakriti Mokshatvam Moksham Chaha. The Mithyatvam of the matter that indirectly includes the Satyatvam of consciousness. Iti ye viduhut te param yanti. They alone attain freedom from the fear of the world. That is called Jivan Muktaha. Param here means moksha. This is the final benefit of self-knowledge, which is attained by undergoing all the sadhanas and the self-knowledge from this chapter. With this, Krishna concludes the Jnanaphalam topic in this verse. Om Tat Satah iti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yogo Nama Trayodasho Adhyaya Sampurnam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sachin, for a very nice explanation of the last verse of this chapter. And you also chanted Iti Shri Mad Bhagavad Gita Su. But I will still dare to say a few words about this most beautiful chapter, which we were so fortunate to learn through the grace of Swamiji. And maybe give me 2 minutes, and I just want you to quickly recap this beautiful chapter where we had one additional verse inserted by Madhusudana Saraswati, where Arjuna asks 6 questions. What is Kshetra? What is Kshetrajna? What is Jnana? What is Jneyam? What is Purusha and Prakriti? Krishna straightaway begins by saying, Kshetram is this body that you can experience is Kshetram. And the one who knows this body is Kshetrajna. He introduced a wonderful prakriya which we need to practice. And Krishna emphasizes very much in this last verse. If there is something that you should know to get moksha, is to be having a very clear distinction between the seer in you and the seen in you. And this is the fundamental principle of Vedanta. Whatever I can see and experience is not me, it is anatma, which includes my body and mind. That is a very, very important distinction. And then in the third verse, he gives the Mahavakya, which says, Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. If you internalize this one mantra, that is a liberating mantra. He says, the one who's seeing through all of us, that conscious principle in all of us is none other than the Sri Krishna principle. After having given that clear distinction and having told what is this Kshetra, Kshetrajna, through the Sankhya philosophy, he goes and elaborates about Kshetram. But he does not elaborate about Kshetrajna. He goes into a new topic called Jnanam, which, as Sachin said, is Sadhana Chatustaya Sampanna. Although he gives some 20 virtues, those virtues can be summarized in, as per Swami Paramarthananda ji, as Sadhana Chatustaya Sampanna, to be able to understand what is Kshetrajna. He does not go to explain that, but he brings in a new term called Jneyam, that which is worth knowing, from verse 13 to verse 18. Verse 13, he talks about Brahman as Sat principle, and verse 18 as Jyoti Sham Api Jyoti, the light of all lights. So in the 18th verse, he spoke about Brahman as consciousness. So those are the most beautiful verses, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, which is the sum of all the Upanishads. The 19th verse was a sort of a transition verse where you said, if you remember, the Anubandha Chatustaya comes there. And from the 20th verse onwards comes the Purusha and the Prakriti. This last verse is the same as Asatoma Sadgamaya. Somehow Sachin keeps getting that Asatoma Sadgamaya. And if I can emphasize this message of the last verse is, those who are spiritually wise, those that means who have Brahma Jnanam, make a clear distinction between Atma and Anatma. Whatever I can see and experience is Anatma. The one who sees is Atma. This Atma, the seer, is Satya, who is independent. Everything that I see and experience has got a dependent existence, and that is what is called Mithya. So this clear distinction should be there between Atma and Anatma. And Sri Krishna in the last verse says, if you have this distinction, this leads to moksha, and this is the benefit of self-knowledge. With that, we come to the 14th chapter, which is also called Gunatraya Guna Atita Vibhaga Yoga. We have five verses to study in this chapter. Although we have, although this 14th chapter is all about the three gunas, if I can quickly recap, there are so many verses in the Bhagavad Gita which have already spoken about the three gunas. Normally, I would have unmuted and asked some of you, can you remember some of those verses? But because of the platform that we are in, which may be very disturbing, but I want you to mentally recap those verses from second chapter, from third chapter, from the 17th chapter, not 17th chapter, from the 13th chapter, 7th chapter, where we have all the gunas come. I will introduce a few verses, which verse 45, which goes like this. त्रैगुण्य विषया वेद निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थः निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान. Extremely beautiful verse. This was explained by Nilima to us. How does it go? Traigunya Vishaya Veda. The Vedas, especially the Veda Purva, talk about the three gunas. The three gunas real means material accomplishments. The Veda Purva talks about doing various karmas for material accomplishments. But then the teacher says, Sri Krishna says, he's talking about karma yoga there. So don't be that I do this sakama karma. Go beyond sakama to nishkama karma. So nistrai gunyo bhavarjuna. Here is saying nishkama. Come on to nishkama type of karma. Nirdvando. Don't be caught by those dualities. Nitya sattvastaha. Always be anchored in the sattva aspect of you. And niryogakshema. Don't be worried about acquisition and preservation, because I will take care of it if you have trust. Atmavan. Atmavan is that one who has the highest Parama Purushartha in vision. If you have the highest Parama Purushartha, which I have summarized, I will read only that Atmavan Bhava. So those, if you are aware of the goal, that whatever we do, we must be aware that we are on a long spiritual journey. And all these are the intermediate stages. We gave the example of a long distance journey by train. You get down and do so many things, but in the back of your mind, whatever actions you do, whatever you do, you remember that one Shruti in your life is, I'm here for Parama Purushartha. This is that beautiful verse. In the third chapter, there is one verse, the fifth verse, which says, Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtati. Now, even for a second, you cannot be quiet. Why? Because of the these gunas which have been born from you. There is sattva and there is a raja aspect on you, and that will prevent you from keeping quiet. You have to do something or the other. Remember, that is early in the third chapter. And then in the seventh chapter, this is a nice verse which says, Nachaiva satvika bhava rajastamasa chaiva mat eva titan vidhi natvam teshu te mai. Krishna is saying that our minds are imbued with rajas, tamas and sattvika, and therefore we are not able to see the Lord. So our mind is affected by Rajoguna, Tamoguna, and Sattvika Guna, and because of them, we are so. And he says, they are all dependent on me, but I am not dependent on them. And then there is another verse which says, Traibir Gunamayir Bhavair. This is the verse which says our mind is so caught up by all these gunas, and they are like, they delude us. Mohitam Nabhijanati. And therefore we are not able to see the divine who is Param Avyayam. My real nature is Param and Avyayam, but because of the Maya, we are all caught up, we are not. So this is another verse which says, Durataya, to go beyond these three gunas, it is extremely difficult. So in this verse, in the 7th chapter, he says, those who surrender to me, I will take you across the shackles caused by these three gunas. The divine Maya of me is indeed difficult to cross, but those who surrender to me, you will be able to cross. And very recently, we studied in this chapter itself, in the 13th chapter, where he talks about Prakritim. Because of Prakriti and Purusha, everything is born. And because of the Prakriti aspect, all the gunas have come into being. We will, in the first few verses, almost up to the first 4 verses, he's giving an overview of Jnana Yoga. And I will request Panaga to explain this verse for us. Panaga, please.
हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। अथ चतुर्दशोऽध्यायः। श्रीभगवानुवाच परं भूय प्रवक्ष्यामि ज्ञानानां ज्ञानमुत्तमम् यज्ञात्वा मुनयः सर्वे परां सिद्धिमितो गताः। Thus begins the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, titled Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. Swami Paramarthananda's entire Bhagavad Gita contains the essence of the Upanishads. This chapter, along with the 13th and 15th, focus mainly on Gnana Yoga, the knowledge of our higher nature. This higher nature, the Kshetragna of the 13th chapter, will now be revealed as Gunatita, or what we more commonly know as the Nirguna Tattvam, the attributeless principle. In this chapter, the Saguna principle or anatma is referred to as Gunatraya, as it comprises of the 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Our true nature transcends all of these gunas. It is Guna Atitaha. This chapter, in a way, shakes the very foundation of how we judge ourselves and everybody around us. We have strongly identified ourselves with our qualities, good or bad. Now we learn that we are not any of these qualities attributed to us. We should use them as stepping stones to realize our higher nature. Coming to the verse, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Lord said, Bhuyaha Pravakshyami, I shall again impart Param Gnanam, that supreme knowledge, Gnananam Uttamam, which is the greatest among all types of knowledge, Yad Gnatva, by learning which Sarve Munayaha, all the sages, Param Siddhim Gataha, have attained the supreme goal, Itaha, from here. In this chapter, Arjuna does not ask Sri Krishna to explain the Gunatita principle. However, Sri Krishna, out of compassion, elaborates on the supreme knowledge, which is very subtle and hence very difficult to understand. What was presented previously as the Purusha Prakriti Vibhaga, Kshetra Kshetragna Vibhaga, Drik Drishya Vibhaga is now presented as Gunatraya Gunatita Vibhaga. He says this knowledge is Param Uttamam Gnanam. 2 superlatives are used to describe this Gnanam, Param and Uttamam, indicating that it is the ultimate and absolute knowledge. The first Param indicates that this subject matter deals with the greatest reality of the world, Atma Gnana, the Paramarthika Satyam, knowing which everything becomes known. So this is Vishaya Drishtya Uttamam, the greatest subject matter. All other branches of knowledge deal with ordinary perishable subjects which give perishable results. Even pursuit of goals like dharma, artha or kama will only give perishable phala, but the study of Atma Gnana gives the imperishable phala of moksha. Hence this knowledge is also phala drishtya uttamam, justifying the second superlative used to describe it. By gaining this knowledge, sarve munayaha, all the sages have attained param siddhim, the highest accomplishment in life, moksha. Here we have to note that Muni does not refer to only the sage wearing saffron robes, but to every seeker who has become an adhikari, a sadhana chatushtaya sampanna. Any seeker having these 4-fold qualifications of discrimination, dispassion, discipline, and desire for moksha can be called a Muni. Such prepared seekers have attained param siddhim, the greatest success while living, itaha gataha, any other achievement will always feel incomplete and its joy will diminish with time. But if we pursue the supreme knowledge and attain liberation, our entire life feels validated. It becomes a life worth living where nothing can affect us and we are filled with an all pervading ananda, a life of purnatvam. Thus, Param Siddhim refers to the highest accomplishment of Jivan Mukti while alive and Videha Mukti after death. Thus, Sri Krishna opens the 14th chapter by telling Arjuna that he will impart that atma gnana, which is the greatest among all branches of knowledge, and by gaining which Arjuna can achieve liberation here and now. Thank you.
Panaga, thank you very much. From today onwards, we will be studying fewer verses. We will be studying only 6 verses per class. The reason being this, we are in the Antima Shatkam, where generally the topics like we saw in the 13th chapter, the verses are much more profound. At least until the 15th chapter, we will have to go a little slow because most of these verses have a very deeper knowledge. And so we can dwell on each of these verses a little more time so that we are not rushing through the verses, and let us see, just by looking at them, what is the meaning that our teacher and the Lord Krishna wants us to get from these particular verses. Until the 4th verse, Sri Krishna is reiterating a basic principle. The basic principle is the seeming duality. The seeming duality in the 13th chapter was Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Kshetra was this body-mind, and Kshetrajna was the knower in the body-mind. Here we have Gunatraya, which is predominantly my mind and body, and Guna Atita. Now we have to now explain why in the same family you will have one child which we call very sattvic, very knowledge oriented, very quiet. There's another child very restless, very active, wants to achieve a lot of things. And there's maybe another child who is very lazy, who does not want to do everything, don't want to do anything. Now, just like we have had in the law of karma, we inherit these things as part of our prarabdha. And so the instrument that we have been given has a lot of deficiencies. And the deficiencies are both rajasic, tamasic, and sattvic. We should not think that sattvic is good and rajasic and tamasic. All the qualities are required, because if you want to sleep, you need tamoguna also. One of the biggest problems in the world today are people are not able to sleep. And even today, people come to us, requesting some form of treatment that they are able to sleep. That's why we know the importance of tamoguna. If the tamoguna factor is there, you're able to rest well. So we will just dwell on these chapters a little bit more detail about what is Jivan Mukti, what is Videha Mukti. Each of these will come in the next 3 verses. Ullas, can you explain verse 2 for us?
Hariom, sir. As sir has told us that chapter 13, 14, 15 are pretty much Upanishadic chapters, and we are being pretty much sold the same product here in different packaging, if you will. In chapter 13, we saw that it was Drigdrishya Viveka, observed and the observer. Here we are being told about the same thing using the Gunatraya and Gunatita Vibhaga Yoga. Basically, Swamiji says that if a message is very important and difficult, it is good to repeat that. And so in the 14th chapter itself, in 14.1, we saw that the greatness of this knowledge, the glory of this knowledge has been told. But in 14.2, again, Krishna says the same thing. So this is pretty much like an advertisement verse, that why this information is, this knowledge is so important about Gunatita and Gunatraya. So for example, how I have understood it as an analogy for myself is that, let's say I'm making a sabji of potato and I've added a lot of red chili on it. Now it becomes a red potato sabji. And then instead of red chili, if I've added, let's say, turmeric on it, now it becomes a yellow potato. But at the end of the day, these attributes are not really of the potato, but it seems as though the potato is of different colors. So the knowledge that this will provide us will give us the jnanam of that. Those are separate attributes which are just superimposed upon myself. And so once I realize that self is different and these attributes are different, then what is the benefit do I get? This is the knowledge, and what is the benefit of that is talked about in 14.2. So the verse is idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharmyam agataha sarge api nopajayante pralayena vyathanti cha. The glory of this is that once a self knows about it, now once one attains the same nature as that of the Lord. Attain is a misnomer, I would say. It's a realization that I drop the identification with the Jivatma and I recognize myself to be of the same nature as of Brahma. Now, what is the nature of Brahma? It's basically two things Swamiji tells is Purnatvam, that I am complete. Atmane Atmana Tushtaha. There is nothing else I need to complete myself. So there is no more desire, there is no more karma. And then we also get freedom from all the insecurities. Now I don't have any fear of any karma phala. There is no regret of any past actions. There is no anxiety of anything which is going to come in future. So I am Purna, I am satisfied. This is also called as Jivana Mukti. As sir was saying that mainly the benefits of this knowledge is both Jivan Mukti, that is freedom or moksha in this life itself, as well as Videha Mukti, that is freedom or moksha after this life. So in Jivan Mukti, we see that I am Purna and I don't have any insecurities or any fear around that. In the same way, so the verse says, Upashritya, if I resort to this knowledge, idam jnanam, agataha, they attain sadhana nature they attain. Na upajayante. Now he's talking about videha mukti. They are not born again in the next srishti, in the next creation. They are again not born. So we get rid of all the punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam cycle also. Again go to the school, again give the exams, again marriage, children, this, that, and the other. All those problems are also resolved by knowing this knowledge. It is of that importance. And then it also says pralayena vyathanti cha. They also do not have any pain of death, because once you are not even going to be punarapi jananam, then where is the question of death? So the more important thing is concentrate on this jnanam and you will get jivan mukti, and videha mukti is the promise that is Shri Krishna is giving here. And then in the future verses we are going to see all that knowledge that we have seen in chapter 13, we will see in 14 as well and in 15. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Ullas. A complete explanation. When you speak, there is nothing else for me to say, but I still will take the liberty. As I said, we would like to keep looking at the verse and to be able to say what is the message Sri Krishna wants to give us. Now, fortunately for us, we have been in this study for quite some time. We have gone into the fundamentals of Vedanta, that is Tattva Bodha. And then we also have studied that beautiful Upanishad of Kaivalya very recently, or we are still in the process of studying that Upanishad. From that background, if you want to, we need to see who this person is. Who am I? That is the question that we are going to answer. Now, what is the objective? To be able to get that nature of God, that is what he says, mama sadharmya agata. You will be able to attain to my nature. You will be able to attain to my nature just like if you see a wave, the wave is made of water, and if you get to know the true nature, then you get to know your essence, which is the essence of the whole. But what is the problem is, although I am already that, although I am guna atita, because of the power of Maya, and Maya has come with these three strands, and the three strands are Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. All of them are binding me. They have bound me so much, and so far I have not been able to see my true nature. I see myself as a limited person, some amount of Sattva, some amount of Tamas, some amount of Rajas, and a combination of all this. And all our life until now as trying to improve a little. Vedanta is trying to make a big shift. Vedanta tries to understand as the body mind for the rest of your life, you are going to be a product of all the three gunas. But there is one aspect of you which is already guna atita. And if you are able to be a nishta on that, right away, this moment you can declare Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti. All our classes are over. This particular verse is a declaration of that. But then we need Nishta, so we'll go to the next verse. Can I request Dr. Raksha to explain this so that Krishna will drive this point more clear? Dr. Raksha, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The third and fourth verses of chapter 14 describe the process of evolution of all beings from the union of Prakriti and Purusha. Verse 3 goes this way: Mama yonir mahat brahma tasmin garbham dadamyaham sambhavaha sarva bhutanam tato bhavati bharata. Bharata, Arjuna, O descendant of Bharata, Mama yonir, my womb, Mahat Brahma is of primordial nature, which is the great Brahma or Prakriti. Aham, I, Tasmin, in that womb, Garbham Dadami, place the seed. Tataha, from that, Sambhavaha Sarva Bhutanam, the birth of all beings, Bhavati, happens. So Lord Krishna is summarizing the process of creation. As we have already seen in chapter 13, verse 19 describes the nature of both Purusha and Prakriti. Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Vidyanadi Ubhavapi Vikaramscha Gunams Chaiva Viddhi Prakriti Sambhavan. Both Purusha Tattva and Prakriti Tattva are Anadi. They are the cause of the creation, but themselves are not created. Purusha is Chetana Tattvam, the conscious principle, Nirguna, without attributes, Nirvikara, without modifications, and Satya, independent of its own existence. And Prakriti is Achetana, Saguna, Savikara, and Mithya. Purusha and Prakriti, that is consciousness and matter, together is the cause of creation. This combination alone is Ishvara. Ishvara is neither pure Purusha or pure Prakriti, and either of them cannot independently become the cause of creation. So Karanam is a mixture of both, and Karyam, the Jiva, is also a mixture of both. Therefore, Shri Krishna says, O Arjuna, I am the Purusha Tattva, and inseparable from me is Prakriti Tattva. As in the first shloka of Saundarya Lahari, Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yadi Bhavati Shakta Prabhavitum Na Che Devam Devo Na Khalu Kushala Spanditumapi. Lord Krishna says, Mama Yoni. In this context, it means the female principle is Mahat Brahma. Word Brahma here is Maya, the Prakriti Tattvam. The matter principle is the Maya Tattvam. Mahat Brahma is the universal mother who is infinite. Then he goes on to say, when the right time for creation comes, Tasmin Aham Garbham Dadami, meaning the life principle, the power to create, the power to reproduce, I hand over. Similarly, at the time of creation, Lord Krishna says, I bless Maya with the power to produce the universe, meaning I give Maya the power to evolve itself into a universe. Like in Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahmananda Valli, which mentions Brahmana Vipaschiteti, by his own will, Tasmadva etasmat atmana akasham sambhuta. From that Brahman, which we define as the Satchidananda Swarupa, which is none other than the Sakshi Chaitanya, Akashaha Sambhuta, the space element with one guna is born. Then Akashat Vayuhu, Vayur Agnihi, Agner Apaha, Adya Pruthivyam Aushadam, Aushadibhyaha Annam, Annat Purushaha. Then Lord Krishna says, Sarva Bhutanam Sambhavaha. Here Bhutani means all things and beings take birth. Then Tataha Bhavati. Thereafter, from that moment, everything evolves naturally. Like in Yasyaiva Spuranam Sadatmakam Asat Kalpartakam Bhasate. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Aksha. Every Upanishad has to bring in creation. So we are now talking about creation. Lord Krishna is trying to explain how all things have come into being. For creation to happen, two essential things are there, Prakriti and Purusha. Whatever has come from Prakriti and Purusha, that is all of us, have a combination of both. We have the Prakriti part, which is the Trigunatmika part of it, and the Purusha part, which is the consciousness part. There is one more thing that we know from Tattva Bodha. Whenever Prakriti and Purusha come together, it is like you standing in front of a mirror. The moment you come in front of a mirror, what happens? A third entity, which is a combination of both, but is not so real, and that is a virtual entity, which is called the reflected consciousness. It is the reflected consciousness which does all these things. Now, in each of these explanations, there is one more verse. Lord Krishna tries to explain our very nature, because if you understand your true nature, that you are Prakriti, with all the three gunas, you are the Purusha component with no gunas, and then when the two of them meet, there is a third entity which has got a combination of consciousness and matter. And so normally we identify with that ego, and it is this ego which is the karta, which is the bhokta, which is the parichinna. That means I feel I am small, therefore I should do all these things to become big, and so the whole samsara is born. This will be a little more clarified in the next verse, which Dr. Srinivas will explain to us. Dr. Srinivas, please.
Yes, sir. Hari Om, sir. Sarva yonishu kaunteya murtaya sambhavantiyaha tasyam brahma mahadyonihi aham bija pradah pita. Basically, this is an explanation of the previous verse. The Lord Bhagavan is reasserting the in this shloka how the Srushti has happened. So let me concentrate, because we are chanting. I would like to tell a few chanting rules which my teacher has taught me, sir. So in this shloka, in the first line, we have a word sambhavanti. So in English, generally we don't have a concept of alpa prana and mahaprana akshara. So generally, what we tend to do is we read it as sambhavanti, but we have to read it as sambhavanti. There should be a visarga, that should be pronounced a little bit harsher, like as though we are breathing out. So this is the first point in this shloka. And if we come to the second line, we have tasam brahma mahadyoniraham. So this is a combination word. There is a visarga sandhi here. Mahadyonihi aham. The visarga sandhi has become rakaram. So when we are chanting, we have to divide each shloka into one quarter, that is one padam. So we can as well chant each word if we are in the beginning. Next is we should chant at least one padam. We can as well chant two padams, or we can as well chant one whole shloka in a single breath. But if you want to stop here, we should stop at tasam brahma mahadyonihi. Tasam brahma mahadyonihi. There we should stop. We should not stop as tasam brahma mahadyoniraham. We should not stop here. So we should stop it as tasam brahma mahadyonihi aham bija pradah pita. So this is way, and bija pradaha is there. So when we are chanting together, when we are reading this bija pradaha, we should pronounce it as pradaha. But if we are chanting together, aham bija pradah pita. So this is how we should chant bija pradah. And one more interesting, sir, which I want to tell here. Please concentrate on the word Brahma. In Sanskrit, actually, the way we pronounce is exactly the way we write. So there are no silent words, and like in English, we don't have any silent words. But here, this is an exception. How it is written is Brahma, but we pronounce it as Brahma, Brahmaha. So this is another interesting thing here. This is about pronunciation, sir, and next, coming to the meaning of each word, sarva yonishu. So we have sarva yonishu. Sarva means all. Yonishu. Yonishu is a saptami vibhakti bahuvachanam word. That means in that. Yonishu. That shu is represents saptami vibhakti. That means in that. Yoni means womb or place of birth. here, this is a very key word in this verse and the previous verse as well. Yonihi means what the literal meaning is womb or place of birth. But actually the meaning is, it is vasanas. The karanam, the meaning in my Sanskrit book is given as yonihi is equal to karanam. What we call as karana shariram or karana shariram or the vasanas, the samisti vasanas is what is the meaning. The Vyasa, sage Vyasa is telling that yonihi is, we should take it as vasanas, samisti vasanas. I will explain that later. Next word is Kaunteya. Kaunteya means son of Kunti. So here we should note that Arjuna has many names, and the sage Vyasa uses this Kaunteya in this context. He is not using here Dhananjaya or Parantapa or like that, because this shloka is talking about the Srushti. So he is telling that you are the son of Kunti. So this is what relevant here. Next is Murtayaha. Murtayaha means forms. Sambhavanti. Sambhavanti means which has been produced. Yaha means we have already discussed in my previous verse. Yaha is a word which means whoever. Yaru. In Kannada it is Yaru. Yaha is a masculine word. Yaha Yau Ye. Yaha is Ekavachanam, Yau is Divachanam, Ye is Bahuvachanam. This is a masculine word, but for feminine, in Sanskrit, we will have different words for masculine, feminine, and neutral gender. So unlike in English, whoever means for feminine or masculine, both it is same. So here, Yaha is telling, this is a feminine word. Ya, Ye, Yaha. This is Ekavachana, Divachana, Bahuvachanam. So shall I continue?
Continue.
Yes,
There's no problem. We have time today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So Yaha means this is a feminine Bahuvachanam. Yaradhara. In Kannada also we don't have a separate word for masculine and feminine. But in Sanskritam we have separate words. So it is representing to here the Anvaya for Yaha is Yaha Murtayaha. So Yaha is we should club that Yaha Murtayaha. So Murtayaha is the feminine word here. So that is names and forms. That's what we usually consider names and forms as feminine. So these names and forms we have to merge in that Supreme Brahman. So the Supreme Brahman is usually considered as masculine. So Murtayaha and Yaha. So next word is Tasam. Tasam again is a Tat Shabdam. We have a Tat Shabdam. Tat means that. In English, there is only one word for masculine and feminine. But in Sanskritam, we have for masculine, tasya tayoha tesham. So we have read in the Vibhuti Yoga all Sasti Vibhakti Bahuvachanam, tesham, Pandavanam, like that, Muninam, Pandavanam, that is Sasti Vibhakti Bahuvachanam. Whereas this Tasam is tasyaha tayoha tasam. That is, again, it is Sasti Vibhakti Bahuvachanam. So that's basically it's a feminine Bahuvachanam word, that for that, and Bahuvachanam. So Tasam Anvayam with Tasam Yonihi. This next it's coming. So for that, this word is, we should club these two words. And we have Yonihi, Brahma Mahad Yonihi. So Mahat we have to club with Brahma. Mahad has to be clubbed with Brahma and Yonihi. So aham means I am myself. Bija Pradaha, that is seed giver. Pita is father. This is the each word meaning. The first word we have to, if we first sentence, if we realign the words, it comes as Kaunteya. Kaunteya is Sambodhana Pratama Vibhakti. Sarva Yonishu Yaha Murtayaha Sambhavanti. So like this we should rearrange the words. So Sarva Yonishu, in all the yonis, so whatever murtis, that is forms, are being produced. That is the meaning of the first line. Second line, Tasam Yonihi Mahad Brahma Aham Bija Pradah Pita. This is the arrangement of the words which we have to rearrange. So for them, Tasam, for them, Yonihi, that is the womb or place of birth, or vasanas, or karana shariram. Mahad Brahma, the great Brahma, that is samasti vasanas, or prakriti, or maya, or shakti. So all these are here it is, or chaturmukha brahma. These are all mahat brahma means these are all the synonymous words which we have to understand. Aham bija pradah pita. That's I am the seed giver father. So what this is the meaning of the word meaning and meaning of the sentence meaning. So now what is the inner meaning is very important here, and most important is yonihi. What is the meaning? So yonihi literal meaning is womb or place of birth, but here what Sage Vyasa is telling is, say he is comparing yonihi to samasti vasanas. So one example which I have read in one of the Upanishads, sir, that explanation was given by Swami Chinmayananda. What he says is every day is compared to all the three states. That is Srushti. The moment we get up from bed is equivalent to Srushti. So Jagat and Swapnavastha, Jagrata and Swapnavastha is compared to Sthiti. And deep sleep or Sushupti Avastha or deep sleep is compared to Layam. So every day we wake up, the Srushti, Sthiti, Laya, every day it is happening. So if we have a vasanas, these vasanas we know that they veil, or the Paramatma is veiled, or it is obstructed by these vasanas. So how we should live our life is so that we should we should do this vasana kshayam. So all the vasanas should go away. Mano nashanam should happen. So all these vasanas is what is making the Srushti every day. So the way we live should be, we should disintegrate or dissolve these vasanas so that we live like like Paramatma, or moksha is attained. So this is the main concept of this is what I understand, sir. And another issue is Sage Vyasa is comparing this father and mother and Srushti in this shloka. He's only telling that these vasanas are compared to mother, and the father is compared to the Chaitanya Rupam. There is nothing like it is vasanas are being to compare to feminine or masculine. There is nothing like that. So vasanas exist in all, male or female as well, and Paramatma exists in both male and female. So this is how we should understand and try to do vasana kshayam and attain the Paramatma. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Srinivas Nuti, for a very nice explanation of this verse and also for the chanting and the grammatical aspects about it. One message we need to get very, very clearly, which you have brought it out already, is that we inherit from our parents only this body, and we cannot blame our parents for our nature. Our nature, whether sattvika, rajasic or tamasic, does not come from our parents. To some extent, a certain environment they create, environment may influence. But what we really come is from our vasanas. And the vasanas are our own making. Because of the certain amount of prarabdha, we have a very strong vasanas, and this vasanas could be predominantly sattvic, predominantly rajasic, predominantly tamasic. It does not mean that because of my vasanas, I am helpless. It may seem that I am helpless. This is the whole chapter that is saying, these are the pashas, these are the three nooses which have come from you. And in these few introductory verses, which we need to meditate very clearly, go back to the law of karma. I am responsible for my life, and I have brought a certain amount of baggage of the past. This baggage is concealing that Parabrahma, Paramatma within me, be it through sattvic bondage, through rajasic bondage or tamasic bondage, does not matter. But there is an avarana that is produced by these three gunas. As long as I realize I am someone other than, these tendencies will be there, but I need to minimize on these tendencies, because the more sattvic I am, the more I'm able to express the divinity more clearly. Now, these are the four introductory verses. With that, the teacher, Lord Krishna, comes to the actual guna aspect. Dr. Vishwas, if you can explain verse 5 to us.
Hari Om. In the last four verses was a very good introduction and how the whole of the chapter will go forward. So 5 is actually the actual beginning verse. The verse goes like Satwan Rajastama iti gunaha prakriti sambhavaha nibhaddanti mahabaho dehi dehi nam avyayam. Sattvam, Rajam, Tama. These are the three gunas that is born from the Prakriti. What is these three things doing? What are these three things doing? There is one more word in the shloka, which is Avyayam. That is the eternal self. That eternal self that is there in each and every one of us. That is happening. What is happening? Nibhadnanti. Nibhadnanti is they are binding. So these three gunas are actually binding the eternal self that is there in all of us. When it came as three gunas, one example that I could think of, all of us know, all of us have, most of us have a color printer at home. A color printer has mainly three colors. It's like red, green, and blue. So with the RGB that it has, what it can print out is 16 million colors. So each person born out of Prakriti is like a mixture of the Sattva, Raja, Tama. You may vary on this. I'll say Sattva is green, I'll say Rajas is blue, and I'll say Tamas is red. If you think of a beautiful sunrise that is happening with a lot of green mountains and one flowing river and the sun seen there, there is all three gunas that you are seeing. You're seeing the Satvika of the green, you're seeing the blue of the water as a Rajasika, and also the red shine that is given by the sun as a Tamasika. So all these three things together make whatever we are. And what does it bind to? It binds us to the present. It binds us to the material. What is the material here? I'm thinking of paper. So the paper is on which the printer is printing all the three different shades, 16 million shades, and it is bringing out that paper as a materialistic form of us. And what Avarana is doing, is that making us believe that we are bound to that paper. So the material, on the material paper, our three gunas are painting a picture which we think that that is us. What is the gnana that we have to attain, which Krishna is taking a nail and is hammering with various verses again and again and again into our head, is that you are not the printed paper. You're not the color on the paper. You come out of the avarana and you have to realize you are the Karana Tattva. You are the printer yourself. Once you realize that is the true knowledge, at least in this analogy, what I can say, that if you realize that you're not the paper coming out of the printer, but you are the printer yourself, then it will be the true knowledge that you can achieve. Again, going back to the word-wise meaning, Sattva, Raja, Tama, or Sattva, Raja, and Tama, iti gunaha. These gunas are prakriti sambhavaha, is the material that the prakriti has given us. Nibadnanti mahabaho. Mahabaho is again an indication towards Arjuna. These three gunas are binding dehe. They are binding in our material body the avyayam dehinam, the eternal self that is there is being bound by these three gunas in our material body. I think the various descriptions and much better descriptions come in the further verses. And thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vishwas, for a nice description of the color printer and the variety that comes from it. You take a look at this verse, Nibadnanti. That means to bind. Who is binding whom? That is, the anatma is binding the atma. See how ridiculous it is? It is like Hanuman, who was bound by those ropes in Lanka, and everybody thought that Hanuman has been bound. It is a seeming binding only, as long as you realize it is impossible for the anatma to bind the atma. We have inherited these three gunas. These three gunas are shackles, they are ropes. Whether it is sattva, whether rajas, whether it is tamas, all of them there is a certain gradation, but all the three are shackles. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who's known for the epitome of spirituality, who himself was not a scriptural genius, who had not studied the scriptures, he would give such beautiful examples to explain all these concepts. This is a story I have told friends many times about a man who was crossing a certain forest to reach home. He was attacked by a group of bandits who snatch away all his fortune. And one of them says that, this man is going to expose us. Let us kill him. The second person says, no, let's not do that ultimate, but let us beat him up thoroughly, blindfold him, tie him up to a tree. And they do that. The third fellow, after all that was done, he waits for the other two people who divide the bounty that they had collected from him, comes back to him, takes away his blindfold, takes away all the ropes that they had tied him to a tree, helps him to find the way to his house. And once he can see the house, the man says, "You're so nice. Why don't you come home?" But he says, "I'm also a thief. I can't come." So the fellow who helped him and brought him up to his home is the Sattvic fellow. The person who prevented him from being killed, but who allowed him to be, who beat him up and tied him to a tree, is the Rajas. And the worst of them all is the Tamasic. So he shows a gradation, but all are thieves. All are something that we need to avoid. This beautiful description will go out, and our teacher Swami Paramarthananda has made it so clear that we understand these. From next class, that is on Wednesday, we will understand these in 5 gradations. What is the definition? How does it bind you? What is the lakshana? What is called gati and what is called pala? Pala is what you experience while alive. Gati is what happens to a predominantly sattvic, predominantly rajasic, predominantly tamasic person after death, and so on. Very instructive chapter. Please come prepared. And with that, we conclude today's class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.